Said, Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sean. So the reason I put this particular webinar together, I wanted to have this as a standing resource, resource for those who are joining here live, but also over on the recording, because this is the kind of thing that, I found people were in the agency space were finding really challenging. Essentially, a lot of the time people sign up to get like a Google ad service or any sort of paid ad service, and it's often not a good situation, either for the client or the agency. And there have been a lot of situations that have given the digital marketing industry a pretty bad rap. And even the word agency can sometimes leave a bit of a sour taste in some people's mouths. And so I wanted to address that head on and kind of talk about a lot of situations where people have not enjoyed their Google Ads services. In fact, sometimes people have really loathed a Google Ads service. And so we're going to be getting into how to make sure that that is not what happens. And if you're joining as a business owner, then these are going to be some tips and tricks on what to look out for in an excellent experience with an agency as well. So today, what we're going to cover is a lot of strategy, like the strategy behind a really fantastic experience for a client, both in terms of results, but also how we get to those results as well. Trust, how that's established in the optimal way between agencies and their clients. Automation versus the personal touch, a very hot topic with the AI hype and craze that is very powerful and is changing things. Pricing, what that looks like, and client alignment, finding the right clients and making sure that you're working with the right kind of people for your agency and vice versa. And here are a few examples of agencies that we've worked with. When I started in digital marketing, I essentially went around lots of agencies and I said, hey, could you use a hand with your Google Ads? Because that's something me and my team are really getting into, and we want to help out and make sure that the Google Ads component of your service offering is delivered to the highest standard. So this led to all sorts of white labeling partnerships where we would do a lot of these agencies' Google Ads for them. So receiving a Google Ads experience from some of these agencies, sometimes it was us behind the scenes actually making the Google Ads magic happen. But we also do a lot of training and consultation. Often agencies will have a fantastic team already in place, and they just need the skills upgrade to get that service to where it really needs to be and get the results for the client where they really need to be, considering Google Ads is such an important digital marketing asset for people to have. And so often this is the situation that we fly into or see people flying into as an agency. We're going to imagine this mountain here as the peak, the results, like where we want the client to get to, like what kind of results we want to be seeing from Google Ads accounts that make really positive differences in businesses. And often we'll jump on a call with an agency owner or someone on an agency's team, and they feel like they're flying right into the mountain face. Like they've said to the client that these sorts of results will appear and happen if they're running Google Ads, and they just can't quite thread that needle. And they're trying to map ahead this massive console where you can, pull on 1,000 different levers at any given time inside of a Google Ads environment. And they're trying to map ahead in their mind, how do these Google Ads accounts like get those results? Like, how do we actually get there? And how do we do it in a way where client expectations are being met and understood, but also there's fair expectations of the agency as well? Like, how do we get there? And it can be really, really stressful. These can be high strung emotional situations. And we essentially come in, and what we want to do is we want the pilot, the agency owner or the agency team member to come in and see what we do, see how we soar over that mountain, see how we get that result, and not only just get the result, but do it in a way that's elegant and enjoyable and good fun all around for everyone involved. A really engaging, thorough process. We also like to keep it nice and calm and grounded and sane, because digital marketing is a really complex place and it's easy to get lost and off track. And so we're going to go into a little bit about the brass tacks of what that elegant set of solutions looks like in the agency world. And so what I'm putting together here, this is going to be a really good resource to pull. If you're watching in the recording, let us know if you want access to these slides. If you're here live, then you will get these slides afterwards as well. But essentially, these are a lot of the questions that we tend to ask during the entire client relationship when we're working directly with clients. But most importantly, right at the beginning, we like to set the precedent on our strategy calls. We like to really get into information around, hey, like what's actually going on in this business? Like, where does it make sense for Google Ads to be threaded in? Like, what does it have to look like in order for this to be a success? Like, how does this actually come together profitably for you? Because Google Ads have to be profitable. Otherwise, there's just absolutely no point whatsoever. And so essentially, we ask a lot of information about who they're looking to target and all these like ideal, customer profiles, client avatars, all of that kind of thing. But really, we're asking, what result is the client really looking for? Is it do they know what they can get out of advertising? Are they just looking to advertise for the sake of advertising? Or do they actually know what's possible with online ads? If you're running ads for clients, do you know what's possible with Google Ads? Often I'll be meeting with agency owners and they won't realize some really big opportunities that are being missed with their clients' Google Ads, whether that's just how the Google Ads are set up or what the strategy is looking like, or important conversations with the client. Usually qualified leads are exactly what people are looking for with Google Ads, unless you're off in the e-commerce space. But even in e-com, like, it's important often for people to have that phone call touch point. Like, if you have a fantastic sales team that your client's working with, then in that sort of a situation, you're really wanting to have at least one touch point, especially if it's a much larger ticket price, or like you really do enormous orders, or it's a large sort of service offering that takes a long time to fulfill. Like qualified leads and phone calls coming in are where that human touch point happens. And because so many things are automated at the moment, and we can often be on hold on phone calls for a really long time, if there's a sales team waiting and ready and picking up the phone and taking care of people, this is something that can lead to mega profitable situations when running Google Ads. And so highly qualified leads in the right place for the right end customers, this is exactly where the magic happens. But what does that look like? Is it turning into sales? Are sales coming through from these qualified leads? Or is it all just traffic that turns into tire kickers? And these are the kind of things that we try and really get a lot of clarity on. We also look at, what's set up already, in the Google Ads account. Are there things that are already working? And what's a priority? Is it actual phone calls? Is it form submissions? or God forbid, button clicks. Often it is button clicks that is set up as a primary conversion, and people are wondering why they're getting lots of traffic, but the leads aren't actually coming through. The qualified traffic isn't actually part of that situation. A client we onboarded just a couple of weeks ago. It's a company that's been around for over 70 years. They've got a fantastic sales team, and their online service it's in the data space, it's in the marketing space, and it's a fantastic service. And so they've been running Google Ads for years, and they've had an agency that's been working on this, or a small team or something that had been working on this Google Ads account for a while, and they'd been getting barely break even. They'd be getting maybe a couple of qualified leads a month, but they were getting like 3,000 clicks a month, and they were spending a few $1,000s, like between $3,000 to $5,000 in ad spend. And I'm looking at this, I'm thinking this makes absolutely no sense. It's like you should be getting way better results than this, and like there's absolutely a road to profitability here, like a road to positive return on ad spend every single month, like without question. Like the market's there, like people are responding, like you are getting some qualified traffic. What's wrong? And we dig into the account, and we did this on the strategy call because we were just a bit concerned about some of the stuff we were hearing. We're like, this seems really odd. And right away, we found out that this account, which had been run by an agency for years, this agency was charging $2,000 a month to run these Google Ads. And the primary conversion action was a button click. And so Google Ads, in all of its wisdom, said, hey, let's go and get as many of these button clicks as we absolutely can. And it was just burning through money. And it was horrible. It's horrible to watch. It's horrible to watch on the faces of the client when they see the realization of how much money has been just drained away. But it's also positive because now we've addressed one of the major problems. And so, whether you're running Google Ads yourself or for a client, it's really important to figure out what is the focus. Like, what are we actually wanting to get out of this account? What is the purpose of the campaign? What is the point? It can't just be, oh, I want to advertise. We can't get away with that anymore. You shouldn't be, at least. Like, there's so much more you can get out of online advertising, especially if you're running ads for clients. Another really important question is, well, what is the customer journey like? What is the sales process? Because if you can get in touch with that for your clients, what that ends up looking like is a really cohesive and integrated digital marketing experience where the Google Ads strategy is built around how that traffic is being handed over to a sales team. And that can get smoother and smoother and smoother over time. And if sales and marketing are talking to each other, usually a lot of money is made. It's amazing how many times I talk to agencies and they're like, oh, like, our sales team, they're bringing in these clients, but like we're really struggling to deliver the results that the sales team is promising. Again and again and again, we see it. And like literally, if sales and marketing are just talking to each other just a little bit more, often these mismatches go away. And the clients suddenly go from, oh, you promised us this, and I wasn't really getting it, to, oh, you said this was possible and you've understood that this is what I want. And I see that we're actually getting here very quickly. That's the difference. And so, to use a very direct example, every single week at What Advertising, we have our operations meeting. And I'm usually the one talking to people and bringing them on board, but I'm very involved in the background of our strategy and how the digital marketing components come together for our clients. And so I make sure I'm on every single one of our operations meetings, because we had some situations early on in What Advertising where I said to a client, hey, like, I think we can achieve this for you. And so let's go and do this strategy. And then operations, they go, hey, we're not quite sure that this is a good client fit or that we can get this result in this industry. There should have been a bit more of a conversation. And that was a big learning experience, and one that served me very well, because I've been able to help so many agencies with the same thing. So many agencies that just need their sales and marketing to be talking to one another a bit better and just setting those expectations with what's possible with Google Ads a bit more clearly, but also understanding, hey, what is possible? What is possible? What do you want? We see where one of these packages that we offer really can get that to happen.
Can I add something here?
Yes, please do.
So something that we found really helpful, just like and very practical, is of course you have like your normal packages as an agency. And usually you've got your systems to onboard and to deliver that package and all of that. But also innovation is really important as well. And Sam, he's head of sales, and so he hears that like directly from the clients all the time, like what their actual needs are. And hopefully you have someone on your team like this, or you could be that person on your team who's like innovating those packages. Sam will often bring those ideas for new packages to ops, and we'll have a brainstorm around them. And that way you have a very clear idea on what it actually looks like to deliver this crazy idea that your salesperson or like the visionary of the business might have. That informs pricing, it informs the whole sales process and narratives. And most of all, it informs the expectations you give to the client, because a lot of things we see with agencies doing with their clients is the salesperson will promise the world, and then the ops team will actually get into the account, meaning like your Google Ad specialists or whatever, and they'll be like, we should have never even took on this client in the first place, let alone promised them the world. And so it's like a very basic thing to communicate with the people who are actually doing the work, but the lack of this happening in the industry is just massive. And I think that's like one of the core reasons agencies have such a bad rap, because they're not communicating within individual departments about expectations and deliverables.
Yep.
And therefore the client just gets ran over in the process, and your agency gets this reputation that you don't deliver. So I just wanted to add to that, because I'm head of ops and we've definitely learned the hard way a few times. And you also don't want to build any resentment within the company. You want to be excited about new deals, not like, oh man, like you did all the easy stuff and now we have to do all the hard work. So anyway, that's all.
Fantastic addition. It's definitely a process as well. Like it's something that you can get better with over time, but makes such a big difference when sales and marketing are talking to each other, and also when sales and marketing and ops is talking to each other. And it's a big part of why we consistently get good results, is because we know what's realistic, we know what's achievable, and we talk to each other. Like communication is the heart of so much of this. Another add-on to the sales process thing is like, does the client that you're running ads for have the infrastructure to support qualified leads? Like if you do send them, 10 qualified leads in a month, does their front desk have the capacity or the training to actually turn those leads into actual sales? And a big part of what we do is we follow our clients deep into the sales process. So we monitor the sales team or the front desk's sales calls, and we essentially cover blind spots. And so we want to start looking at that side of things really early on so that we don't set up a Google Ads account to deliver lots of calls to a particular place and then it's not actually turning into any sort of real business. We like to nip those things in the bud right from that first strategy call. Also, a really interesting one is, and a little bit non-intuitive, is the focus on results. Like, our long-term, like lifetime value averages more important for the end client running the Google Ads, or month-to-month returns? What is like the customer sales cycle like? How long is the lead time? All of these things play into what kind of results you're actually going to want to focus the Google Ads account on. Because sometimes, it's like, hey, we're getting the 3 to 4x minimum acceptable return on ad spend month to month. But actually, if you add that up over time and you look back retrospectively over a year, you can see that lots of sales pop through after the 3 to 6 month mark. And actually, that long-term lifetime value for that particular client is enormous. An example of that is a mobile app development agency that we ran ads for. And, they sell $200,000 to $400,000 products. And that takes a lot of trust from their end customer to engage them. And so we brought in some awesome leads for them, like just beautiful, big, juicy companies. They're just great fits, ready to buy, or so they said at first. But, it took several months, sometimes over a year, before that lead that came in from Google Ads actually turned into real business. And month to month, it looked, okay-ish, but over time, that's where the real returns kicked in, because that acquisition took a really long time, and some businesses are just like that. When do they want results? And is that realistic compared to some of that other stuff? Is that realistic compared to their average lead time? Is that realistic compared to, how good their sales team or front desk is? Really important questions. Do they have a cutoff in mind? Like, are they going to say, hey, after $20,000 of ad spend over this period of time, like, this is a success or a failure? Like, this is something we want to keep going with, or this is something we're going to, say, hey, like, at this point, we would want to stop experimenting if we didn't reach a certain return on ad spend. Like, getting a feel for that can help to calibrate how aggressive or conservative of an advertising strategy is actually appropriate for that client. And what are they willing to pay for a lead as well? Sometimes people are willing to pay a lot more upfront to grab a bit of market share. Sometimes, they're mega profit focused and they're in that mode, in that season in business, and they want to get a really, really competitive cost per lead in the industry. And like, these are all things that massively influence the core strategy. This is before you even lift a finger to touch the Google Ads account. This is all background theory and strategy. And if you're running ads for clients and you aren't asking some of these questions, try asking even a couple of these on your next onboarding or your next strategy or kickoff call or whatever you call it in your business. Because getting some clarity on this is so amazing for stopping horrible situations from happening in like 3 or 4 or 6 months or a year's time. If you know this stuff up front right away, a lot of problems never even happen in the first place. You're just so far ahead of it. You're addressing problems just right at the beginning. And then once we have this strategy call where we ask these questions and then a lot of other questions, we implement our monthly strategy. Our monthly strategy is a really wonderful creative time for our team. We take a really close look at what's going on, and we look at what our long-term objectives are for clients, and then we have that broken down into months. And then from that point, it goes into weekly optimizations. But the strategy part we do month to month, because this stops us from running around after changing objectives. It gets us very clear, and it gets the client very clear on what's going to happen. And we learned this one the hard way as well. Like very early on, we would pander a little too much to every little single thing that the client wanted to try in Google Ads. They say, we want to try this angle and create a new campaign here. And then a week and a half later, they would say, oh, well, actually, let's make sure the ad spends focused towards this other different angle. And this would happen in cycles to where we would have tried 6 or 7 different angles in the space of 2 months and not really given any particular thing enough of a chance to see if the market really responded positively to it or not. The monthly strategy gives us a really good chunk of time to be testing things, but then also adjusting course, to be eliminating the stuff that isn't working, doubling down on the stuff that is working, but also adding in new angles and new layers in a sane, sensible cadence. It also really protects us from Google's ad reps shoving their recommendations down our throats and saying, hey, will you be our guinea pig and put up all the ad spend to test out this new feature? While us as Google has absolutely no risk. A lot of the time, people go in and they say, all right, yeah, we'll try this new angle. And they'll start applying these things upon the recommendation of a Google Ads rep. Google Ads reps have their place, and they're great to work with if they know their stuff, and they do know a lot of things, and they do actually have a decent amount of power to go in and change some things in the back end of your Google Ads account or your client's Google Ads account to where you can actually get much better results. But often, if you're on a call with a Google Ads rep, that Google Ads rep will say, press this button, click this recommendation, make these changes right now. And our team have been trained to respond with, hey, actually, thanks for the recommendation. That's lovely. We will consider it for next month's strategy. And that creates this amazing buffer to where we can actually respond respectfully and keep that relationship with a really important Google Ads rep present, while also making sure that we're protecting our client's strategy, because that Google Ads rep, they've not asked all these questions of the client. They have no idea what those long-term results are. They don't know what's going on. Shlan's coming through with some water for me. It's getting a bit dry here in Yakima. We're technically in high desert here, but because our irrigation is so good, you look outside and it doesn't look like it. So hydration is key. So in that situation, our team members are trained to say, hey, like, let's consider it for monthly strategy. And it just protects us from lots of bad situations instead of recommendations being applied willy-nilly with no actual reference to the strategy. And, on average, I talk to Google Ads reps, and you talk to them, you can ask them, well, how long have you been working for Google? Typically, it will be under 6 months. Typically, there are some Google Ads reps out there that love their stuff and they've been with Google for a long time, but it's quite rare, actually. And so then you can actually come through as the agency and say, well, you know what? I've had several years of working with clients. I have a big, long track record of how things can go well in Google Ads accounts. We're actually running this strategy and we know it works. And this recommendation doesn't actually seem all that useful, and they've got their quotas that they need to hit and all of that, and so they can sometimes get a bit huffy and annoyed, but you essentially need to hold your ground because you've got a whole business on the line here. Sometimes, like especially if Google Ads is a major traffic source, I've worked with businesses where, and this isn't the healthiest thing, but like where Google Ads is their number one source of leads. Got other lead sources, but like Google Ads is a major component of it, and you can't just go around clicking on things at random if that's the case. Like these things need to be considered very carefully if qualified leads from Google adds oxygen to your business. Anyway, enough about that. Another thing I want to talk about is the ratio of people that tend to your customers if you're in the agency space. I think one of the reasons that agencies, or the word agency has a bit of a bad rap, is there are a lot of really high volume actors out there, people who say, hey, look, I'm going to onboard hundreds to thousands of clients every single year, as much as I can. And then essentially what happens is this sort of situation. And this was a weird one. This image from AI, I said, do it in the style of a Dilbert cartoon. And it's like uncannily good. Like really uncannily good. It's like you would have thought maybe it's an actual original. That's how close it is. But essentially, this is a situation that happens. Like you've got your client success manager or your project manager, and if it's a high volume situation, suddenly you've got like a dozen clients right now saying, hey, this isn't working. My Google Ads sucks. Like I'm not getting results. What is going on? And this project manager, they're wringing their hands and they're saying, well, maybe we'll just keep going for another month or 3 or 6 and just see what happens. Maybe it'll get better. But essentially the problem is like that alignment hasn't been addressed at that deep level, that strategy and that intellectual engagement where lots of bright, positive, energized minds like gather around the business situation in the marketing sense and say, hey, how can we set this up for the best chance of success? That hasn't happened. And some of our clients who love us the most have come from situations like this. And I won't name names, but there are these like really high volume agencies where you essentially pay them just a few $100s a month to kind of keep things running in the Google Ads account. But typically what we'll do is we'll look in those accounts and like barely anything has been done. Like the change history is so sparse. It's almost like the desert itself. And you look at the ads and they've not been updated for 2 or 3 years. It's like, come on, advertising and marketing is about experimenting and testing things and engaging creatively. Like it's a moving process. It's not this static thing. Like it's alive. And when it's not treated like that, it fails and people get upset because they're not getting what they really want to be getting out of, the amazing power of digital marketing tools that we have at our disposal. Google Ads is still frankly amazes me, like just what an outstanding technology it is and how it invigorates business and how useful it is for connecting customers to a really relevant solution, saving people so much time and delivering the most relevant service to people. Like that's what it can and should be. And so we were working with an agency recently, still are, and they essentially do things in cohorts. Like they help people in the therapy space run their own practices and like get a lot of the operations and sales and marketing components right. And because they have sort of a cohort model, they will onboard lots of people at a time. And where we came in is they said, hey, we actually do done for you Google Ads to help these businesses as they're like getting their digital infrastructure together. And, we're saying that they'll get like 10 or so sales, like actual sales in this time period. It's like 3 months or something. But we're getting them like maybe 5 to 7 actual sales, and they're all unhappy about this, and so we just work for free for them until it happens. But again, like, it just creates this little bit of an awkward dynamic. So first of all, they could just say, hey, we'll guarantee you 5 sales. That would be fine. Or customers or patients rather for this space. But the other thing they could do is address a very big problem that we uncovered. So essentially, they were doing done for you Google Ads, but like literally they only had the time and the resources to run the Google Ads for these people for maybe a few weeks. And that is not enough to get a good track record in a Google Ads account, especially starting from scratch so much of the time for these people. You're not going to get towards those results. And it's no wonder that, again, over promising and then under delivering is taking place. And so this happens all the time. And so a big part of that is like, hey, you need to be charging a bit more if you are going to be offering Google Ads as a service. You need to have the resources you need to do a good job. You need to be able to spend the time thinking about it and not take this mass approach, because it's leading to a lot of unhappiness across your client base. And there are a couple of ways, you can go about things past that point, and we'll get to that towards the end of today's presentation. Anyone been on a cruise ship before? Teresa, Shlan, myself. Cruise ship experiences, they can be amazing, and they can also be terrible. And there are many reasons why it can be either very good or very bad. And I won't go into some of those things, but I will talk about one item in particular. And I like to think about this in relation to what advertising services and how we make sure people get a really fantastic experience. Cruise ships are rated often on the ratio of staff members to customers, to people that are enjoying their cruise. And if you've got a lot of staff members tending to your customer, like each individual customer, that customer is going to feel really well looked after. They're going to feel like they truly are living in the lap of luxury. They're having the experience that they signed up for. If it's on the lower end, sometimes they can feel a little bit forgotten about, which, that's not an experience anyone wants in any part of their life at all. No less in business when so much is on the line. And so we try to create an experience that is very rich and high touch, so that we can spend the time on strategy, so that we can get into the weeds and take the time to make sure that things are done to that really high standard. And so at What Advertising, every client gets at least 2 calls per month, and of course unlimited email support. But I've gone through seasons where I've thought, are we spending too much time with the client? But then a few months ago, I had an experience where I had a team come in and clean up What Advertising's website's SEO. We've not done too much work on our own on-site SEO. It's not really where we get the most business, so we've not focused there. But it needed a bit of a tidy up. So I brought this team on, and it was really low touch. It really didn't feel like they cared deeply. It felt like we were sort of always on the back burner and just not important. And I've had a couple of experiences kind of like that, where you don't feel like you're actually being valued, and like you're very low priority, and it doesn't feel good to be someone's bottom or very low priority. And again, like, I think it's because that SEO company, they took a mega high volume approach, super high volume. And so I was just one of hundreds and hundreds of meaningless individuals to them. And so this like really has me entrenched in the belief that, it's like, hey, like minimum like 2 calls per month, like a check-in call in the middle of the month, and then our beefier reporting call where we also, talk about strategy to come in months ahead. And I go so far. And, we've had a couple of clients who are like, I don't want to spend all this time on calls with you. And it's like, well, at least have a point of contact, engaging with one of our team, because without that, we cannot get the results that you want to be getting out of your Google ads. Like it's just not something that we found works. And we've seen lots of problems where people aren't getting those regular touch points with other agency experiences. And so big part of what we do, it seems pretty simple. You get a couple of calls a month, but it goes so far. It leads to this rich, vibrant experience. And you can see in the bottom right there, it's like we have so much fun with our clients. Like we become great friends. When I started this business, there was this saying that I had, and like I was just writing about what I wanted my experience of this business to be. And there's this thing, I wrote it up on my wall and I said it several times a week out loud to really ingrain it. And what it was I thoroughly enjoy the key relationship in all of my business partnerships, because I wanted to have a lovely, vibrant experience of business. And we've all met people who just drudge through business and like everything's terrible and it sucks. And I have to deal with this person and that person. It's like, you know what? I don't believe it has to be that way. And so, I set out to build something better. And I'm thrilled to be able to say that we have. And like, I really look forward to interactions with our clients. They're really wonderful and enriching, and it makes being in business something really beautiful. In terms of delivering the service, we believe in getting 1% better every day. This is something that Shlan and I embody in our personal relationship of marriage, actually. And we've said that ever since we started dating, it's like, we want to be 1% better every day. And we want each iteration of our lives to be that little bit better intentionally. And what I love about this is that compounds. It's like you just need to do like these tiny little things, but over time you look back and you've achieved so much, you've come so far, you've improved so much, like life becomes this much richer experience. And there is no upper limit. It's like you can do this always. There's always something that can be done just a little bit better. And this is something that we've brought into our team culture and our culture with helping clients. And it makes me really excited about all the things that we do for clients. And so here are some examples of some of those iterations, a very small selection. Shlan has a very full list. Shlan is so good at systems, and she's always working to improve them. And we have team members that are also system whizzes as well and are way better at loading out these iterations than I am. But here's some of them. Call quality control for our clients. I mentioned this a bit earlier on, but because we listen in on the call recordings of our client sales teams and their or their front desk, depending on how they handle inbound inquiries, we get to know what their end customers really want based on how they're asking and what those inquiries look like. And it helps us to really cover their blind spots a lot, because sometimes, if you've been doing something a certain way for years, you don't realize what you're missing out on. And so we come in and we say on our reporting calls, like, all right, so, out of, the 20 or so calls that you got in the last month or so, or, depending on the business, 40 calls. What we're seeing here is that this particular customer service representative was rude to the last 5 people. And they probably didn't realize, but there's this thing that they say, and it really rubs people up the wrong way. And we could tell based on how the conversation went. And you know what? That means that you missed out on, say, $50,000 that you could have had in revenue from those people, potentially. So either train that person to so that they don't say that thing, or get rid of them and make sure it's someone else that's answering the phone calls for that. Like, you can't be missing out on that revenue. Like, this is where the trust is built. Like, this is where someone's calling and they want to know that when someone picks up the phone and answers, that they'll be handled with care. And when that trust is built, like, that sets the tone for a really long and fantastic customer situation. So really, really important. So we really get into the weeds with this, and it helps our clients get 1% better consistently. And that means that the traffic that we throw at them with Google Ads, the qualified leads, those go so much further. And that leads to our average return on ad spend being something really healthy month to month, but also over time. Where's the sales team dropping the ball? It's happening very constantly, all the time. Yeah, the other thing it does is it helps you to catch problems early. If you're doing that call quality control, it helps the end customer to have less of those situations happen. But also, we also like to catch problems early in our relationship with our clients. So we have all sorts of ways that we do this. But essentially, when we catch problems early, we can build solutions that, once that solution is in place and systemized based on the problem that happened, everyone's results improve. I think it's Toyota. Actually, Toyota, one of the reasons that their cars are so reliable, this blew my mind, is one of the only car companies that does it, is the cars come through the conveyor line, and anyone at any point can say, hey, there's this problem with this car. Like, there's like a reliability issue, or like it's not gonna work. Like, there's this problem. Everyone stops. The assembly line shuts down, and everyone gets together and they figure out how to make that better. And they only restart the assembly line once they've got the solution in place, so that every car that comes afterwards doesn't have the same problem in it. What most car manufacturers do is they see the problem and they're like, well, we know the next 1,000 cars is going to have this problem. We'll just do an aftermarket fix. And that's often how agencies do it as well. They're like, you know what, like, we'll keep selling this package for the next year. And it's like, we'll just deal with the problems as they come up. But it's so much more headache, and it stops you from mapping a better solution across your client base. Anyway, another thing that we do is client satisfaction surveys. Really basic, but it's actually pretty easy to do, especially if you've already got so many touch points. If you're, giving your clients calls where they've got FaceTime with you, it's like, hey, right at the end of a call, hey, can you take this quick survey? And tons of our clients fill these out. And that also helps us to catch problems early, because we see, there's this thing that we misunderstood, but because they put it in the form, we can get ahead of it and we can address this. And we find that out quickly instead of in 6 months' time, because in 6 months' time, they might be at the point where they want to throw in the towel. And we just didn't ever know. But because we do the surveys, we know, and we can get ahead of that. And that's led to a big increase in our client retention, because things just work better when everyone's on the same page. So we give we give our clients that page to fill out so that we can get on that same page with them. And yeah, as I've been banging this drum this whole presentation, we have a high level of touch points for our clients. AI can't compete with care and compassion and empathy, and like really meeting someone where they're at in their business. And that is why I'm going to keep doing things the way that we're doing it with what advertising in terms of those touch points, because it's always going to set us apart. And it's something that I recommend enormously for our agency partners. And our agency partners that have the highest client satisfaction do the same thing. They have lots of touch points, they have lots of connection. They really track with their clients as much as they possibly can. And people are happy to pay on the higher end to get that job done right. Like many times people will like go to a mechanic and they'll like just try and get the best deal. But if that doesn't fix the car, or it's like an intermittent fix, they're going to go somewhere else and they're going to happily pay twice as much to just get rid of that headache and just have the job done right that first time. And it's the same with any service, Google Ads services included. And in the world of digital marketing, look, it's super, super competitive. Results are a given. It's like you've got to be good at what you do. But how deep you go after those results, and like this is where we go really deep into that sales process of our clients, and what kind of experience that is for your customer, like what the journey is like to those results, because there are dozens of ways to get to the same result. Like that's unique to your agency, and like that's where you can find really good alignment, that where people would want to work with you and just you rather than someone else, because they like you, they like their style, like your style, and they like the way that you do things. But these are some things that you can apply, no matter what kind of agency you have. So just a little bit on pricing here. We work on a base retainer model, and this is something that really works for us and for our clients, because people know what they're going to get. Like every single month, they don't need to worry about it. It's like the same monthly price for a certain package. The ad spend percentage can get a little bit funny, and like revenue percentage is really tough to do, especially with like long lead times and stuff. And we've just found that this works well for us for this season of business, and it works for other agencies as well. The thing about this is that it works really also with larger packages. So, if you're a fuller service agency and you're selling a large variety of things from website design to SEO all the way through, like you can layer it in like as a monthly management fee really easily as well. It's also nice and simple for your end customer. We typically start at $1,200 a month. Because we go so deep into the sales process, we make sure that we have the time that we need to really make sure that the sales come through. And that's worth it to our clients. And a lot of our clients, again, as I said before, that really love working with us, they were paying, a high volume agency the $400 or $500 a month, even if they were on a lower ad spend, like $5K a month or something like that. And the thing was, because they weren't getting the results, like it just didn't work. So we want to make sure that those results really do have the best chance of coming through. So that's why we charge what we're worth. We charge to make sure that our team does have the hours they need to make sure that those results can come through. For bigger accounts, you can follow that rough 10 to 20% of ad spend rule. But, there's a limit to that. Like, it's always been odd to me that people base, charge of management, like, a management fee, so much around what the account is spending, because that's only one little indicator of scale. You could have two different Google Ads accounts in two different industries, and they're both spending $10,000 a month. But one of them could be generating that business, $600,000 to $800,000 a month in revenue. Like we've seen it. That's the rare case. But like you can get really extraordinary returns. But then the other account, even though they're spending the same, they might only be making like $300,000. And so like you can see these really big gaps of like 500,000 in revenue for the same amount of ad spend. And then you need to think about, well, for that client's industry, what are their profit margins? That's a big thing to consider. And so one of the things to think about is like, all right, what kind of results are coming through? Like for bigger accounts that are more complex, that have larger sales associated with them, it can take a lot more effort, especially if you are tracking them into the sales process as well. And so that should be considered in the pricing and how you price for clients as well. I've gone over a lot of this stuff already. Essentially, the more thorough you are, the more you can serve your customers. And we believe in that level of thoroughness. We do not cut corners. We do the job right, and we recommend our agency partners to do the same. And that keeps the end customers much happier and the partnership with you stronger, and in that case, usually longer. We sieve people through our values as well. Like if other companies that we work with aren't aligned with these values, then we'll recommend another team that like is just a bit better for them. That's a big part of how we select the right clients. Again, I've gone over some of this, but essentially, if you have some high volume and you have quality issues with your paid ad service, this is something we see a lot. You've got two main options. I think, you can pre-qualify your clients more aggressively according to really good fits, and you can think about your values for that. You can think about your unique service offering. You can think about all sorts of things. Like, is there actually good alignment here? And like, will I enjoy this relationship, or am I just doing it to grow my business? Does the client even need Google Ads? Like often, I'm talking to an agent, I'm like, are you sure you really should even be doing Google Ads for this particular client? It just doesn't seem like quite the right traffic source. And then it's amazing how many times people go, you know what? Yeah, you're right. We actually need to focus on this over here. Like Google Ads is not the thing we should be spending time on for this client. Or that could be Facebook ad or SEO or whatever the service is. Sometimes it's not quite the right thing. And that can get rid of those bad situations before they even happen. It's like looking ahead. Yeah, the added benefits, you get to enjoy spending time with those clients a bit more as well. But then the other option is you can offer a higher ticket option for your larger client. So for example, the therapist related agency that we've been working with recently, they could definitely have more of those higher tiers so that for the clients that they layer in Google Ads for, their team can actually spend the time to get excellent results there. So multiple options. Those are two options. There are definitely more, but those are two things to consider if you do have those quality issues and you're looking to improve. That's all I had for today. If you do want to talk more, we do have the ability to grab some time with me due to amazing scheduling links, another wonderful technology. But that is it for now. And we will open it to Q&A. If there are questions, Teresa.
Do you do a consultation and take a look at do you take a look at an account? I'm not an agency, obviously, but do you take a look at an account and then ahead of time?
Yeah, I'll usually, when I'm on the sales call with the client, what I'll usually do is, I'll ask questions about where they are and where they want to go, but I always try and take at least a peek. So I'll invite the person to share their screen, and I'll just jump in and I'll just get a rough idea, like a rough idea of spend, a rough idea of like what is being tracked, how it's being tracked, a rough idea of the ad copy, just like a few of the basic components of what makes the Google Ads account work. And then I'll bring that information to the team. And I'll say, hey, look, like, here's the situation. Like, here's what I think will work. Here's what I've recommended to this prospect. What do you think? Like, do we need to modify that? Does that look realistic? And this goes back to that point that I made earlier around like, hey, I'm on my ops calls every single week to make sure that we're getting that gap closer and closer and closer. And that's led to me automatically offering more appropriate packages and solutions up front a lot more. But then we're also flexible. Like these things aren't set in stone. So like if the needs are a bit different, like often I'll suggest something and then the client's like, well, you know what, I'm not quite sure if that's actually what I need or this account needs. And then we get into it, like we figure it out. And then if the client's comfortable and they want to move ahead, then we get to that strategy call and then we really go deep and, the rest shakes out from there. But yeah, I try and take at least a quick little look at those Google Ads account because sometimes sometimes I can say, hey, look, change that setting and you'll stop wasting $2,000 a month right away. You're welcome.
Yeah.
And that quick win can be really useful. It's like, hey, even if you're not going to work with us, like get that fixed. Like you deserve better.
Yeah. Great. And the last thing I have to do is, what would you recommend? We're going to go to the British Isles next month.
Oh, lovely.
We're going to be on a cruise around the British Islands. We're going to stop in Edinburgh and in
Nice.
Lerwick, up in Shetland. You have anything Lerwick, Shetland Island in Scotland?
Oh, Shetland Islands. My goodness. I have not actually been all the way up there, but I've heard it's beautiful and you're going at a good time of year as well.
Yeah, the end of June, the beginning of July. So we're going to go over there. Anything special to do in Edinburgh that you know of?
Do you like to walk?
Yes.
Hike? Okay, so one thing that would be really fun for you to do is there's a hill, it's less than an hour to, like, you can park near the base of it. Like if you like grab an Uber over there from the cruise ship or whatever, from the base of it, it's probably less than an hour to walk up it. And you get this fantastic view, especially if you catch a good day. And it is sunnier generally on the east coast of Scotland than the west coast. So your chances are decent. You get this wonderful view of the ocean on one side, the North Sea. And then on the other side, like you look down and you can see all of Edinburgh. And it can take a little bit of picking out to do, but you can see Edinburgh Castle from there as well. And it's also where I asked Shalane if she wanted to date me. And she said yes. So it's a very special.
Oh, that's wonderful. What's that hill called?
It's called Arthur's Seat. And I'll put it in the chat here, or Shalane, you could put it in the chat. And it's just it's a very high return little walk up a hill for, like not too much effort.
Awesome.
So it's really, really good. I'd recommend that. And then if you've got time, the castle is extraordinary. Edinburgh Castle, it was built in 1107 or something. So, that thing's like almost 1,000 years old now. It's the most contested over castle in the world. I think there's been the most like battles fought around it. It's got this amazing history around it. It's truly extraordinary. And you get to the Royal Mile to walk up to it, and you've got all these wonderful shops and stuff leading down, and places to eat and stuff. So you can do a lot in a short amount of time if you go to the castle.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. We're really excited to go see. So we're 11-day cruise around the Isles.
Wonderful. That sounds like a great time.
In Ireland, Scotland, and in England.
That's amazing. That sounds like a fantastic cruise. I hope you have a decent ratio of staff to attend.
I think we do.
Awesome.
It's the celebrity cruise.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, so we're gonna go do that. So I'm really looking forward to that. So we're gonna go June 20th to July 7th.
Oh, I think you're going to have an absolutely
We have to
wonderful
go see our
time.
distributor over there, of course.
Yeah, you gotta thread business in somehow.
That's right. Okay.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
my pleasure. My pleasure. So good to see you,
Good to see you
Teresa.
both again.
Yeah, love seeing you on these. Thank you so much
All
for
right.
coming.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye bye.